With roll call, please.
All right. Counselor Pietzold.
Here.
Counselor Horsfall.
Absent.
Counselor Hamblin.
Present.
Counselor Lee.
Here.
Counselor Exner.
Here.
Counselor Kubik.
Absent.
Mayor King.
Present.
Can I ask one clarification? Since we're starting this, that these two haven't shown up here, that if they were to come midway, that they don't participate up here without hearing every candidate?
I'd second that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes,
Absolutely.
I agree.
Okay. Okay, new business?
No new business.
Well, yeah, we do. Candidate interviews.
Well, I'm thinking changes. There are no changes to the agenda. Yeah.
Good save.
Habits we get into.
Nice.
Is he ready, just waiting on us? You guys want to start?
Yeah, let's bring him in. We can get our introductions done, and by the time we're done with that, it'll be 8:15 and we can get started.
Okay, brief introductions, and Carl starts with question 1.
And the next one starts when?
9:15.
Or whenever you're ready.
Mhm.
Okay.
First of all, I'd like to introduce Jordan Wheeler.
Morning. Morning.
Nice to meet you.
John, nice to meet you.
Bill.
Hi.
Good morning.
Hi, Jordan.
Would you like some water?
Sure.
Okay. Got it? Somebody got it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep, go
All
for
right.
it.
Well, welcome. Thank you for joining us this morning, making the drive out. I'm Jeremy Pietzold. I'm the City Council President. I've been on the council for 12 years, and I was on the Planning Commission for 2 years prior to that.
John Hamblin, city councilor. I've been on council. I just said that we should answer this, and I can't remember. I was on budget committee for 2 years before being on council and an appointment, and then re-elected a year and a half ago.
And Bill King, I've been the mayor for 8 years.
I'm Jan Lee. I'm new to the council, just about a half year, and was on the budget committee prior.
And I'm Carl Exner. I've been here about 8 years on council, and before that, Planning Commission, about 4 years. So a little bit of time there. I am the designated old person on this list, too, not time and grade.
Hey, we can't talk age.
Yes.
All right. I didn't specify.
Whenever you're ready, sir.
Okay. Well, welcome. Good morning. And we're going to proceed with questions through the council, and each one of us will ask you, and so you can answer as you can. Appreciate that. And I'll start out. Jordan, what makes you the best leader for the city of Sandy?
First of all, thank you for the opportunity. This is quite a privilege to be here. You have a fantastic community. You know, as a personal note, my family, my wife and I have always wanted to find our way into the shadow of Mount Hood. And so when this opportunity presented itself, I knew it wasn't one that I wanted to miss. We've long had our eyes on Sandy. So I bring 10 years of experience in local government in Clackamas County. I've worked for the city of Lake Oswego for 10 years, currently the deputy city manager. And my responsibilities there include managing the budget, managing large capital projects, supervising staff, filling in for the city manager on vacations and things like that. So I bring experience working with city councils, working with boards and commissions, working with a very engaged community that is passionate about their quality of life in their community. And my leadership qualities are really a strength in interpersonal skills, having a strong emotional intelligence, and also bringing my analytic and creative and innovative background and trying to solve complex local government problems. It's been my career to be in the city management field. I knew from an early age that this was something that I wanted to do as a profession, and I've been pursuing that ever since. There's just something about communities like Sandy, the size of Sandy. I grew up in a suburb that was of similar size. I think that's sort of embedded in my DNA, that the strong sense of community that's built around parks and school districts and family oriented is something I'm very comfortable with. But at the same time, I just love the details of providing public services and rather than the big policy stuff that our federal officials and state officials have to deal with, just the challenge of providing clean water, from treating the wastewater to paving roads, and the challenge of leading an organization to do that very well is something that I think I bring to the equation.
Okay, thank you.
I'll ask you the second question then. What do you do when an individual council member asks you to perform a task that wasn't already approved by the entire council and puts the city somewhat at risk as a result?
Yeah, this happens, and sometimes it has to do with the fact that we don't maybe have the protocols in place and a good understanding of the time and the resources that it may take to do a task, and maybe it takes conversations with the council as a whole and as a body to set those protocols and those rules of procedure so that there's an understanding of maybe what those requests are and when it hits a council level versus maybe in a reasonable amount of time that maybe we can follow up on an information request or a task. Typically it's maybe something like 5 or 10 minutes if we can answer that question or we can resolve that. Is reasonable, but if it's something that's going to take more time, it's going to take staff resources, that's something the council should be providing direction on. I think my approach would be, to let the directors and the managers have the ability to respond to council inquiries. I would want to know about it, but I wouldn't see my role as being the direct point of contact for any council inquiries or questions about agenda items or something like that. Obviously, if it turns into something that is bigger, they can direct that to me. But again, I think it starts at what the council wants as a protocol or as a procedure. And again, as a group, they can decide what's appropriate in terms of time commitment and understanding the resource that it would take.
Thank you.
Okay, how do you view the role of the council in working with the city manager and their administration? And how would you handle a council member monopolizing a department and or staff's time on a specific issue?
Yeah, I mean, it could take a one-on-one conversation with that counselor to let them understand and see sort of what that impact is on that department. It also could take a conversation, maybe a goal setting, again, to help the council sort of set those rules and those procedures of how they operate as a body and how they give direction as a body. I think the fun part of our job is that, and why I love city management, is that we are taking direction from you, the council, that are setting the goals, they're setting the vision, and setting the policies, and then we have the challenge, which I find to be really fun, is coming up with options, opportunities, do the research, and do good staff work to set you up for success. You give us a goal, and we go back and we work on it, and we find a way to do it, present different options, and say, here we go. And if we're doing our jobs well, we're doing good staff work, we're setting you up for success, and we're implementing that vision. Again, it's not uncommon to have that line sort of blurred with the counselor sort of not maybe understanding the role in the council manager form of government, and especially with new counselors, as elections happen, that part of setting up a counselor for success is understanding that role. So if we can send them to trainings, if we can have them go to LOC trainings and first-time counselor classes and things like that, I think that helps. And being a resource for that counselor to understand what is the role of the council. And because obviously, if you're on this body, you're passionate about serving, and to do your job effectively and have a vision is providing good direction to staff. And we can help sort of clarify for you and clarify, we need direction or how we get that direction. But again, to make you successful, we want to help you really serve in that policy setting role as best as we can.
Thank you.
All right, I've got the next one. What is your experience and approach in dealing with the news media and maintaining positive relationships?
Yeah. So Sandy Pamplin is the paper, of course, and you know, in the greater Portland region, or you know, we have the Oregon. Occasionally, you probably have TV cameras if there's a hot button issue and things like that. In the city of Lake Oswego, we also have a local community newspaper. My approach is, as one of my responsibilities is supervise the communication staff. So my approach is to meet with the media regularly and establish a relationship. We have to be careful that you know, it's the fourth branch of government, really, and their job is to report fairly on what's happening at the city. Our job then, in working with them, is to make sure they have the right information, have good information, that we establish trust between the two groups. And I think the advantage for us, really, in cities like Sandy and also in Lake Oswego and other towns, is that we have that local community newspaper that you know, do a pretty good job of covering the council, covering the city, covering other community events. And so we have an opportunity to partner there on, again, sharing the successes of the council and sharing the successes of the city, making sure people are informed about major initiatives like what's going on with the community campus and other things. And you know, they can help us. And I think looking at them as a partner, but also again, not trying to influence or steer what they're reporting, but make sure that they're getting the information they need. I'm comfortable talking with the media. I'm comfortable, you know, interviewing and sharing information. There's also the line that, you know, the city manager is the leader of the municipal organization. The mayor and the council is the face, is the elected officials, you're the leader of the community. So there's sort of that line you have to be careful with. You know, I wouldn't expect to be, you know, the most known person in the community. I expect the mayor and the council to be that role.
Thank you.
Thanks. What experience have you had in labor negotiations, and can you give an example of the outcome?
So from the city manager's office, obviously we, you know, have an assistant city manager, myself for the deputy city manager and the city manager, and you know, we sort of strategize on the labor negotiations. I've sat on a labor negotiation team actually years ago. We have 3 unions in Lake Oswego, police, fire, and general staff. And my role really has been more as a support in doing analytic work, looking at compensation studies, strategies in terms of communication and bargaining. You know, it's just a part of you know, the management role in making sure that you maintain a good relationship with your staff. I think one of the strategies that has been effective for us is bringing on third parties to make sure that it doesn't create too much of that tension, that we're working collectively towards a good deal for everybody involved. And by bringing in a third party to help with that, helps facilitate, it helps sort of deflect from sort of management versus staff.
Thank you. Describe the most successful capital improvement project you were responsible for and what made it successful.
I'm in the middle of one that I will call a success. We haven't broken ground yet, but this week our city council just approved the schematic design, so we're getting very close. It's a $40 million city hall, new city hall project that includes a new police station and also some retail spaces. It has been a project that has been 2 years in the making, actually more than that if you include the amount of time it took to plan and do the space planning and the legwork to get to the point of even hiring an architect. But you know, I would call it a success in several ways. And the reason, you know, it isn't complete, but I use this as an example. Just getting to the point where we are now has taken a lot of work, both behind the scenes and with the public, to explain what the need is, explain how we're going to fund it. You know, going through a design process and a concept planning process that involves the public, so that they're bought into the direction, look and feel of the building. And you know, honestly, there was ups and downs. Initially, we set out to build just a police station. And at the same time, we wanted to look at the condition of City Hall, and I understand there's some upgrades have been happening with this building too. We felt that it was prudent to take a hard look at the building and whether it was actually worth it to do repairs versus take this opportunity to perhaps build a new City Hall. It wasn't a 7-0 vote. It was a split decision, and I saw that as a challenge. How can I get the full governing body to support this project? So once it became clear that they reluctantly needed to replace City Hall and not just repair it, we set out to work on how we can work with those councilors to feel better about that decision in supporting the City Hall. So because it's an urban renewal, majority funded from urban renewal, we added retail spaces to the front so that it can enhance our downtown. We presented some different options for how we could repurpose the old building into like a plaza and a convenient customer parking. And that went over well with the councilors. And again, what has helped in this process is having years of planning with the architects and planners to engage with the public to help them, understand what the need is and their opportunities for, directing the design and having input into that. So we're at a stage now where we have the architect on board, we have the contractor on board. It's working with consultants, with design professionals, with staff, with other department heads, meeting one-on-one with counselors, and has several public meetings. And it's exciting that we're moving into the next phase.
Okay, thank you.
How and when do you determine if you need to involve the city attorney in addressing the city's issues?
Yeah, I understand, Sandy doesn't have the on-staff resources that the city of Lake Oswego does, and we have a fantastic city attorney. So I think there's a degree of reasonableness there. We should know how to write an ordinance. We should know how to write city code. When it's an actual legal issue is when we should be willing to pay for those services. And so that equipping staff with those capabilities to be able to draft an ordinance, draft a resolution, write a staff report that doesn't need to be reviewed. We should be able to write contracts and have them reviewed in a timely manner by an outside agency. But again, like if we're doing our work well and we've trained our staff and we've hired well, we should be able to do that work in-house with as minimal involvement as possible. On the land use side, it could be a little bit trickier, right? Challenges to city code, interpretations, and things like that. And Oregon with our fondness for doing a lot of land use planning and multiple layers of regulation and government sometimes complicates that a little bit. So again, hiring and retaining good staff that are knowledgeable in land use and Oregon regulations is helpful, but there would probably be times when we would need to engage with outside legal staff.
Thank you.
Share your thoughts and experiences on cities operating a biennial budget, and also what is your philosophy on departments carrying over unused funds to the next budget cycle?
I think the biennial budget's a great format. In Lake Oswego, we've had a history of going back and forth. When I started there, we had a biannual budget. We converted to an annual budget, and that was at the same time consolidating our general fund. So some of that was because of the recession, and there was a greater heightened interest in diving into our finances on an annual basis. I'm fond of the biannual budget because I think it allows us to do better financial planning, honestly. It doesn't, some of the criticism is that, well, we only get to, the budget committee only gets to, adopt a budget every other year, not every year. And there's things that we can do as a group to involve the public on an annual basis or more if we would like. Typically in a biennial budget, you'll have a mid-year or after the first year, come back and do a supplemental budget or budget adjustments. Lake Oswego, the city manager, Scott Lazenby, former city manager of Sandy, came to Lake Oswego, and one of the first actions he wanted to do was adopt the expenditure control budgeting, which has a carryover program, and it's been very successful. I'm a big fan. Full disclosure of that that process as the budget director. I went from having to manage line item budgeting with numerous performance measures, department head meetings, 6 budget committee meetings, to a process where we're now able to buy fire engines out of the carryover in the fire department. The department directors like it. You know, the philosophy again is we pay our managers to manage. They know best in terms of what they need to provide those services, and the vision for the council. It provides an opportunity to give them the flexibility to weather things like PERS increases or emergency equipment purchases. And so, you know, from the feedback I've heard from our departments, is they do like that program, and with the city of Lake Oswego, I think our citizens have seen the benefit too, in terms of the services that have been delivered. We are currently in the process of transitioning back to a biennial budget. For the last couple budget cycles, we've actually been doing a one-year budget with a projected year. And again, the benefit of a biennial budget is you can project out over more than just 1 year. And so when a city like Sandy that's full service with, you know, major water and sewer and street projects are on the horizon and then, you know, under development, it makes it easier for us to project that, for us to carry over, to plan those capital projects versus having to explain what's going on when 1 year you're underspending because, well, guess when construction season is? It's in July. So you got to carry those funds back over for the next and things like that. So.
Thank you.
Okay, Sandy has recently experienced rapid growth in both population and tourism, and this has led to changing needs in our community. Describe any experiences you have in this area and how you would lead the city through these changes.
Yeah, you know, they say change is inevitable, and there's different types of change that occurs. In Lake Oswego, we've experienced, you know, being close into the metro area, it's a first-tier suburb, a lot of infill development. And that includes more high-density housing, tear-downs, and building of subdivision in neighborhoods and things like that, and brings similar issues that Sandy is looking at now. Is not so much, you know, as much population growth in Lake Oswego, but the impact in neighborhoods and the current, you know, residents and the infrastructure. I think that is the challenge here is Sandy's done pretty well on how to manage growth in terms of, you know, making sure development pays for itself, looking at your SDCs, looking at how you plan effectively to have, you know, services like parks in the new development. How do you provide transportation and different types of modes of transportation to developments? But what happens is that increased demand starts putting an increase on your services, your existing services, your infrastructure, and as new residents come in, the development's paying for itself, but we have this existing, you know, infrastructure that is increasingly coming under higher demands, and so there is a point where we need, if we're doing our jobs well, we're communicating those impacts and looking at tough decisions on what to do. You know, our utilities will need to be increased for capacity. At some point they will age. We will need a new, you know, water intake systems and treatment systems, you know, pipe capacities and things like that. And SDCs can be reimbursed for some of those. But it could mean, you know, utility rate increases. It could mean looking at other ways of funding recreation programs. I understand, you know, the demands on police patrol increase. And so there is sort of a real conversation that may have to happen at a certain threshold of, you know, we can't hold the line on staff forever. And as cities grow, as developments come in, it's cyclical. Sandy, you know, has been growing for many years. You know, from 4,000 residents in 1990 to, you know, 11,000 today. There's a reason people want to move here. It's beautiful and they want to be here, but how do we preserve that for, you know, current, new, existing, and future residents? And again, back to my point is, you know, we might have to look at, you know, maintaining level of service may take additional staff, or it may take other ways to fund those services, either contracting or seeking outside help or partnerships with other agencies to make sure that we're processing permits on a timely manner. We're able to patrol our streets and provide safe, you know, the community. that we're able to fund, recreation programs at a level that we want to fund and have everybody enjoy them. So it's a challenge that is exciting to me. It's a city that's in action, it's in motion, and working with you to ensure that it's a city that preserves, the character and the spirit of Sandy.
Thank you.
What will your first steps be upon assuming responsibilities in this position?
Yeah, this is the first 90 days question. Obviously, establishing a rapport with the council is number one. I would want to understand, everyone's vision and goals. This would be an interesting time to come into the city. Obviously, starting the budget process is probably underway, or at least the initial legwork is getting going. I imagine we probably want to do goal setting at the start of the year, but I would want to meet with staff, probably if I could meet with staff within the first 6 months, one-on-one, every staff member that I can, just as a way to introduce myself and get to know staff, set up meetings with department heads and understand their priorities and their issues in their departments. I would want to get to know the community better by doing ride-alongs with police and reach out to the fire district for maybe even doing a fire ride-along, and going out with a code enforcement officer and things like that, just to learn more about the day-to-day. And then again, I think the most important thing for me and my success would be understanding what I could do as a leader of the organization to make you successful. So again, relatively new council, and this is an opportunity to really define the vision, how we address growth, how we accomplish, putting the plan into place for the community campus, how to expand Sandy Net, and together it would be exciting to meet with everyone and get those conversations going, and then as a group set our goals for the next 2, 5, 10 years.
Great, my turn. So how would you choose to communicate with the council, and why is that style effective to you?
I'll do it in a variety of ways. Again, I would seek the council's input on how each and every one of you would like to be communicated. We all have different preferences. I would want to meet at least on a regular basis, again, up to the council. I think you meet twice a month as a business, as conducting your business. But as one-on-ones, I would want to meet with you at least monthly, if not even more with the mayor, probably with the mayor on a weekly basis to set the agenda, to set meetings and things like that. Communication-wise, I would probably do at least a weekly report via email or newsletter or blog, and I know you have departmental monthly reports that come out, but the advantage of email or memos is that we can be pretty clear about the information, that all the counselors receive the same information at the same time. The one-on-ones would be more about issues that counselors have that they want to share, and maybe kind of toss around some ideas. But again, I think it's important that all the counselors kind of hear the same information at the same time. So that's why those weekly updates of here's what's going on, here things to be aware of. And then you have the ad hoc communication that needs to occur too. So if there's something happening in the community, or there's an emergency, or an issue has popped up, I'd make sure that you're notified right away. Depending on the urgency of that, it would take a phone call if it's something that you need to know right away, versus making sure that you get it in communication. So again, society has changed a lot over the years. There's now this expectation that if you get an email, you're there and able to respond right away, but which is even in text messages too. We always have our phones on us, but I think that's an unfair expectation. So if it's something that is an emergency or something, it's pick up the phone and call.
Great. Okay.
Could you please describe any experiences you may have had collaborating with other government decision bodies?
Sure. I've applied for grants. I've worked with the Oregon Department of Transportation on redevelopment projects in our downtown. We have Highway 43, similar to not as traveled as 26, but we do have a state highway that runs through the city. So things like, can we place banners over the road and flower baskets? I've applied for grants, for TGM grants, similar to City of Sandy too, as a transportation system plan. I think that underworks. As the manager of our franchises, I work with kind of quasi-government organizations like Northwest Natural and PGE, so I'm very familiar with the public utility providers. I'm an active member in our state association and our national association, OCCMA and ICMA. Lake Oswego briefly did have a lobbyist, and so I have some experience in working, this was a few years back, but working with private sector consultants on how to interface effectively with state and federal governments. As you probably are aware, there's not a whole lot coming out of the state or federal government for local governments, so it wasn't too effective, but at least gave me some insight on how we can speak with our representatives, we can speak with our senators and see if we can get some help on some of these big projects coming down the pipeline.
Okay, do you see value in the city operating municipal services that directly compete with private industry? For example, the City of Sandy's municipal internet service provider, SandyNet.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we tried this in Lake Oswego. Again, Scott Lazenby was here when SandyNet was implemented. It wasn't successful in Lake Oswego for a few reasons. Again, I think it probably had to do with that sentiment that government's now competing with the private sector. I guess I would say my philosophy on that is it's changed in terms of the infrastructure. I see fiber and I see internet as basically a public service, and I think that's kind of how Sandy has communicated that providing the fiber, so to speak, the pipe, similar to water or wastewater, is something that I think is expected that everybody has access to, and so I think what the city is doing to try to expand that to every community, every part of the community, residential, business, is a fantastic approach, because it's basically an essential public utility at this point. And Sandy was able to do it in a way that would do it at a lower cost than the private sector. The government sometimes takes some heat for competing with the private sector in certain areas. But I think it's also fair for government to compete in certain areas where we can be competitive, where we don't have to seek a profit margin or increase our wealth for our shareholders, but we're trying to provide a public service, and that is access to the internet. The advantage with providing just the fiber and just the internet wire, so to speak, is we're not controlling the content at all. It's open to anyone who wants to, put their content on there. Any kind of, service provider. We're providing that backbone and that access so citizens can have, fast, reliable, fiber speed internet.
Thank you.
Our next city manager will inherit the task of implementing the next phases of the Sandy Community Campus project. How would you manage the expectations of the residents with the reality of the financial constraints of the city?
Yeah, these projects are fun because you do have so much community excitement. What a great opportunity! For $2 million, you have this great campus and the heart of the city to build such a great amenity and a place for people to gather to create that improve that sense of place. And then the bill comes. And I think the approach that we've set out to do, where you're looking at it in terms of how do we do this in phases, 3 or 4 phases, incremental approach is the right way. The alternative is you build a plan and you generate excitement, you communicate that plan, and ask the citizens, here's the plan, under this this model, it's going to take a while to implement. And even then, it's going to be competing with other, capital projects and priorities and, service levels and things like that. Are you willing to pay for it? Is there a community group that would come together and say, we really want to pay for a GEO bond, or find, creative financing ways to do this, or this is the priority. So, weighing this project versus other ones is important, and that's why we, put together capital improvement plans and build our financial forecasts, communicating that to the public to set expectations, depending on the board's direction. If this is a 10, 15, 20-year plan, being clear and setting those expectations that here's what's going to be delivered on year 2. Here's what's going to be delivered on phase 3. We've done the pool improvements, but it may take some time until those ball fields are ready to, hold tournaments and things like that. But if, again, you're the closest to your constituents in the community, and as we're doing outreach and we're hearing from them that this is awesome, we want this, we have to be real about it's going to cost money and how are we going to do that, and maybe present some options to them and how we can do it sooner than later.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're down to the end here. What question do you have for us?
Well, I don't want to take too much of your time. I really appreciate the opportunity. It's a privilege to be able to come here and be a finalist for this position. Sandy is fantastic. You have a lot of great things going for it. Being someone who's worked for Scott Lazenby now for 5 years, I don't think a day goes by that he doesn't talk about Sandy in his time here. So I told this to the other panels, but he joked with me that I don't want to lose you or anything, but if there was a job that I think you'd be good for, and I really enjoyed my time here, I would really encourage you to apply for this. I bring that creative approach to government that we need to challenge that status quo. That's something that I really admire about Sandy, being able to do something like SandyNet and have your own transit system and find creative ways to grow in a way that sustains that community spirit, that pioneer spirit is fantastic, and you're in a great setting here too, as you all know. You have some challenges and just coming up really soon with the budget. PERS, the need to fund police services with the Cicada contract being not renewed. I actually was interested in kind of hearing a little bit more about what the next step is with that community campus. It seems like there was we're doing some outreach on what the plan was from the architect firm, and I was kind of curious on what the council's expectation on what's coming back and when.
That's coming back, but we've already gotten a basic outline and plan. I think we're at the point right now where the residents need to dive down into it and figure out how much can we afford versus how much do we want. And so we've got to look at making it more realistic, price-wise.
In terms of, back to the budget question, has the council started thinking about a strategy for funding, things like police services and looking at the PERS increases coming? Has that been something that's on the council?
Constantly, all the time.
Yeah.
It's the budget, while the public input process is pretty much during the budget cycle, staff and council is constantly aware of where we're at and what we need to do, and the department heads work with the city manager to make sure that they can get their departments adequately funded to provide at least a minimum needed requirements within our budget constraints.
And I mentioned a couple of the plans that I know, so we're in Parks and Recreation plan, you have your transportation system plan.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a smart way to address the growth questions, and it is it's also on the radar updating the comp plan and any other master plans that might be under consideration.
Yes, they're all.
They're all.
Yeah,
They're all.
Yeah,
on the hopper.
It's an ongoing process all the time.
Sure. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I hope that to be able to continue the conversation with you. Again, I really appreciate the opportunity, and best of luck on the decision.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was nice to meet you.
Yes, nice to meet you.
I'll be right back.
Thank you.
Jordan,
Thank you, Jordan.
say hi to Scott for me.
I will.
All right.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you.
Nice to meet you, Jordan.
Nice meeting you. Say hi to Scott.
I will.
Actually running ahead of schedule.
Yeah, that went faster than I expected. I kept looking up at the clock thinking we were going to be running over, but we weren't.
You guys did great
It's
on
close,
time.
yeah.
It
Well,
was
he-
pretty concise.
Yeah, he was.
Flexible on the
On the
length.
time.
did.
So, and we've got a baseline, we made it through 15, so if
Right.
the next candidate didn't make it through 15 in
That's
the
not
same
on you.
allotted time, it's not our issue.
Right.
I think the reason that we made it is the candidate was so competent in the answers and concise.
He sure went through it.
Knew what he was.
Be careful on that deliberation. Yeah.
Oh.
Yes,
All right,
ma'am.
any more
Yes, ma'am.
donuts out there?
Salute and say yes. All right, move on.
You know what? I think I will go get a refresh on the coffee.
The next one is at, you
Try
said
some
9:15?
box
so
coffee.
9:15.
You have some
25
time.
minutes
Yeah.
or so?
Yep.
And that is,
But we might start early if they're all ready to go.
okay.
And then we need to make sure we adjust the clock.
Hi, Council. I'd like to introduce you to Blair Larson.
Hello.
Nice to meet you. Good to meet you. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you.
Blair, nice to meet you, Bill.
Nice to meet you.
Blair.
Hi, Bill. Good to meet you too.
Hello.
Again.
See you again.
Nice to meet you. Oh,
Just had a-
just change that.
We're all set?
You all set to go?
Yeah.
Well, we're going to start by introducing ourselves. So
Okay.
I'm Jeremy Pietzold. I'm the City Council President. I've been on the City Council for finishing my 12th year, and I was on Planning Commission for 2 years prior.
John Hamblin, City Councilor, was on Budget Committee for 2 years prior to being on council and an appointment, and then re-elected about a year and a half ago.
Bill King, I'm the mayor. I've been here for 8 years.
Jan Lee, I'm fairly new, half year, 2 years prior on the Budget Committee.
And I'm Carl Exner. I've been here as city council about 8 years, like Jeremy, and well, not less than Jeremy, as an older guy, and then also about 4 years before that on the planning commission. So,
Okay, well, we're going to ask you 15 questions, and Carl's going to start.
okay, welcome, Blair. What makes you the best leader for the city of Sandy?
You know, leadership it varies from person to person. There's not any one perfect leader.
Mhm.
There's finding the right match for your community and for the people that you have. But the reason I think I'm a great leader is that I meet people where they are. I don't insist on people doing things my way or rising to where I am. When it comes to, if there's a need for instruction or training or something like that, yeah, I provide that. But all the other aspects of leadership, communicating with them, helping them understand what the council's goals are, the visions, that kind of thing. My job is to facilitate that, essentially. It's not to insist that everybody, okay, you will meet this exact way of how I think things should be done. I'm going to facilitate it, train, help. And that's what I see as a leader, is really someone who's there to serve everyone, to help get the goals accomplished.
Great.
What do you do when an individual council member asks you to perform a task that is not approved by the entire council and puts the city at risk?
Well, puts our city at risk. You know, if it's something that's not risky and doesn't take any resources and it's just a quick thing, I have no problem with a quick question or whatever. But you know, understanding our roles is vital to getting the city's work done. And so I would, of course, gently point out the provisions in the charter or the city ordinances that kind of specify what powers people have, and ask that, well, this is something probably that you should talk to the rest of the council about to ensure that everybody else is on board, because we're not going to expend city resources, show favoritism to one person, and you know, there could be huge consequences. You said put the city at risk. Risk needs to be managed, and we need to be aware of what actions we take and what the legal consequences could be.
Thank you.
Now, how do you view the role of the council in working with the city manager and their administration? And how would you handle a council member monopolizing a department or staff's time on a specific issue?
Okay. The way I view it, and the way it's typically done in most cities, is the council is the legislative branch of the city government. They set the policy, they pass the ordinances. And when it comes to working with staff, it's, especially when it comes to directing staff or using staff resources, it's not appropriate. And like we said in the last question, it's the united body of the council that holds authority, not any one individual counselor. And so, as carefully as I can, I would point that out and try to maintain that those separate roles. Now, I love working with councils. I love having councils involved and letting me know about issues that they see, possibly with city staff and so forth, problems that they see in the city, but that should come through the city manager. And my staff should understand that If there's ever going to be a problem, it's going to come through the established chain of command of the city organization. They don't need to worry about any outside, any elected official coming directly to them about a problem. That's going to come through the city manager. And I think the staff gets a lot of comfort from that. It's makes them feel a bit more secure and just makes things flow better.
What is your experience and approach in dealing with the news media and maintaining positive relationships?
I am currently city manager of Stanfield, and so whenever there is an issue that piques their interest, they contact me. I've given the press the same open door policy, open email policy that I give to any citizen. They can contact me just as easily as any resident can on really any issue. Now, I usually limit what I say to established procedures and policies. I don't like to speculate, and often the press will ask what I think the likelihood is of a certain ordinance passing or certain actions, and I try to shy away from that because it's not my place to put words in the mouths of the councilors or to suggest that anything has a likelihood of passage that would change policies. And so I let them know that. So you should talk to the councilor. You should come to council meetings and ask that question. But when it comes to the press, I like to provide information, be open about what we're doing, what we do. We don't have anything to hide. We're a government, so everything's open book. Even if it's not something that is on our website, you can put in a request to get the information, and in all likelihood, unless it's something illegal, something that's not releasable because of public records law, then in all likelihood we'll be able to provide that information. But I like to be open and have those contacts in place. I know the press where I am now and have developed relationships with them over the last 5 years so that I feel that they know how to quote me right when things do get into the paper. But I don't see them as something to fear. They're really a great tool for the city to use to get messages out, and so those relationships should be nurtured.
Thank you.
What experience have you had in labor negotiations, and can you give an example of the outcome?
Okay. The city of Stanfield does not have any unions, and so that is one area that I have not been a city manager working with unions. In my prior experience with Broward County, we of course did have unions there, and that was part of the budget process, was to work through that. I was not part of the negotiating issues there. However, I do have education in labor law, and so I'm familiar with the terms, I'm familiar with the contracts. Negotiating is basically trying to get the city's interests embodied in those contracts, and that's something that I would do here as anywhere.
Okay, describe the most successful capital improvement project you were responsible for, and then what made it successful?
Successful is I'm trying to decide what is the most successful. There's a couple that I have in mind that I consider both equally successful. One is more economic development successful, the other is more quality of life successful. So maybe I'll just briefly tell you about both of them. Stanfield put in a $4 million water system improvements project. My predecessor started it, and I oversaw the construction of the final work. And that project expanded our capacity. We had a new reservoir, a new well drilled, and transmission lines from there. And so it opened, because of the placement of that new infrastructure, it opened up the I-84 interchange in Stanfield to development. So because of that investment that the community made, we have additional development at that interchange where we want it to be, that caters to travelers on I-84. And that's been nice to see and very successful. It's provided much more reliable water for us, better quality water, and improved pressure as well. The one that I am most proud of, though, is our trail that we just finished construction on right now. We have a waterway through Stanfield that a lot of residents call the ditch, but I'm trying to rebrand it as Stage Gulch, and because it sounds nicer, you know. But it was historically the source of floods for Stanfield, in huge floods in the 70s and early 80s, and that really crippled Stanfield's development. One of the things that the city did before I arrived was get levees built along that waterway, and that shrunk the flood zone down to just between the levees, and it utilized some park space, open space, as part of the floodway. Really fantastic plan. I had nothing to do with that part. However, when I got there, they still didn't have all the easements in place for maintaining those levees. And so part of my job was to just bug the heck out of people and get those easement agreements in place. We could have condemned the property and taken it over, but the city took the path of making an offer for the fair value of the land, and most citizens and most of the property owners were very content with that. I did have one that I had to negotiate with, and we raised it a little bit, but in the end, it saved time and saved money by not having to go through the courts to get it done. The great thing about those easements is that they were an exclusive easement, and they were not limited to maintaining the levees. And so we could use that easement for anything. And one of the things identified in our Parks Master Plan was a trail going along that waterway. As soon as we had the easements done, we started looking for grant funding and additional funding to be able to construct that trail. It's about a mile long. It goes right through the center of Stanfield, and it's not connected to any other, any motorized street or any other paved surface. So, and it crosses some streets. So the great thing about it is you can have white pedestrians and bicyclists there, and they're not interfered with by any motorized activity at all. And it's the only place in Stanfield where you can do that. So we've been through the process of getting the grant funding, getting with the engineers to get the design in place, and then the construction just barely finished. So we oversaw that. We had one change order to get some bollards in place where we wanted to make sure that vehicles couldn't access it. We didn't realize that the trail would be more accessible to some vehicles in this one spot. And so we did have a change order to put some bollards in. But fortunately, we had cost savings elsewhere in the project that made it so that it was not an overall net increase for the project. But I'm really pleased with it. It's a great asset to the community. Everybody loves it. We had walkers on it basically before construction was even completed. And it's just been a huge change, big asset. We recently did some surveys, and just the comments from the public have been phenomenal. Better than anything that we've done. It's been very visible.
How and when do you determine if you need to involve the city attorney in addressing city issues?
If it's established policy that we haven't had any trouble with, and nobody's asking about, I usually don't. I go with the if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of mentality. I'm not going to run things by the city attorney that are very established and clear. If we're moving into a new area, something that we haven't done before, something that's controversial, those are the elements that I'm going to look at to see, is this something that we should involve the city attorney? Especially if it involves employment law, because right now, I'm not sure if you had any presentations from CIS or any of the other local government agencies, but the vast majority of risk management expense and the legal fees is going to employment law issues. And so those are issues that I believe very much in getting the attorneys involved as soon as possible. Just to make sure the city's on good footing, make sure that we're not going to be looking at a labor lawsuit, an employment lawsuit later. And then if we're dealing with land issues, taking possession of land, easements, those kinds of things, we want to maintain good relations with property owners and make sure that we're on good ground there. So yes, definitely have the attorney involved as soon as possible. And then if there are new programs that we're adding that could adversely affect someone, we need to make sure that we're not opening ourselves up to risk that way too.
Thank you.
Share your thoughts and experiences on cities operating a biennial budget. Also, what is your philosophy on departments carrying over unused funds into the next budget cycle?
Sandy is very interesting with your budget, and it's not something that I have seen before. It is very unusual. There aren't very many cities that have a biennial budget, and there aren't very many cities that allow department heads to carry over funds like that. In Broward County, we did have ways to carry over funds from one fiscal year to the next, and but those were more of a management, budget office, department head negotiation kind of thing, where they would talk about the specific projects that they had in mind, and they would carry over those balances as a supplemental budget. So it wasn't the same. Policy-wise, it looks great. I've looked into that idea of carrying things over, and I would love to do something similar in Stanfield, because I trust my department heads. We have fabulous police chiefs. We have a great public works director, a fabulous library director, and they're not the kind of people who treat this money lightly. They are careful with it, and they want to use it for ways to improve their department and make it easier and better service, more efficient for employees. And so if there's the proper oversight, as long as you have the right people on the bus handling this, I can't think of I just don't see a problem with it. And I think it shows a lot of, it empowers employees. I like empowering employees to do their job. I don't want to interfere. I don't want to micromanage. So that's great. I haven't heard any negative. Now, if there's bad experiences, again, I haven't heard those, and so I would want to examine the process if there's some concern. But at this time, I haven't heard them. As for biennial budgets, if you can not do a budget every single year, I think it saves significant stress on the community, on the staff, and a budget is a plan, and anything can happen to throw off that plan. And the likelihood of something happening within a single year to throw out that plan is probably a little bit lower than in a 2-year period. However, not that much lower. It seems to me that the additional time is worth the risk of something throwing off that plan, as long as you have a mechanism in place for supplemental budgets and making corrections when necessary.
Thank you.
Sandy has recently experienced rapid growth in both population and tourism, and this has led to the changing needs in our community. Describe any experiences you have had in this area and how you would lead the city through these changes.
Well, Stanfield does not have the growth that Sandy does, definitely. But we have, in our part of Umatilla County, there has been pretty significant growth for our area. Lots of jobs, not enough people to fill those jobs, lack of housing. And so in Stanfield, we have taken the approach where we want to meet the demand of what people are looking for. We know that there are jobs there, we know that people are looking for housing, so we're trying to do what we can to make that available. We recently updated our water master plan, and those master plans have planning periods, they have population estimates involved in them, and they're essentially designed to make sure that your infrastructure is going to meet the need of your residents, given that you're going to grow. And growth is something to be managed. It's it's up to the policymakers to determine how easy you want that growth to be and where you want that growth to be. But it's going to come no matter what. You can't stop demographics. So you need to be careful with it. Having those plans in place, I've had experience getting that master plan through. We need to do a wastewater master plan as well. Like I said earlier, there was a parks master plan done before I arrived that we've been moving forward with. And those all had population and growth components to them. And so if you can get those master plans in place, make sure you have funding to address the capital improvements that are necessary, have funding allocated. I'm a big believer in having specific revenue streams to specific goals, specific plans. And so if you can have a policy in place where we know that this growth is coming, we know that this is our list of things, these are the priorities that we've placed on them, this is the order we're going to construct them, and we're going to give this percentage of this fund over to those capital improvements. That's, in my opinion, where it works best. So you just have to plan for it and be aware of what, do your best to be aware of what could happen when it comes to growth and rise to the bait.
Thank you.
All right, what will your first steps be upon assuming responsibilities in this position?
Okay, so master plans that I talked about, I need to read everything you've got. There are significant plans that should be already in place and that I've read about that I know exist. And so getting an assessment of where things are when it comes to those master plans, that infrastructure is a vital part, because I need to have a working knowledge and vocabulary to really start the relationships with the public and the staff and with you. And so there's going to be a steep learning curve of reading your plans, comprehensive plan, all the street master plans, transportation system plan. All of these things I need to have an awareness of what they are. Policies that are in place. Personnel, of course, need to know exactly how your salary and wage schedule works, how advancement works. All of those things, I need to have a base knowledge before I really do anything, so that I can make sure, one, make sure I don't inadvertently change anything, and two, just so that I'm aware of what problems may exist and what may need to be tweaked in the future. I don't see myself as a change agent coming in, because I don't know you well enough to know if that's even necessary. I make changes where they're necessary and where there's a need for them. And so getting that initial orientation is going to be vital. Obviously meeting with the council is going to be, and getting to know you all and your priorities is going to be one of the other first steps. That's a vital part of it, because I work for you. You set the policy. If there's something that's wrong with the city, you should know about it, and you should know what the options are to fix it. That's part of my job, is to get that, facilitate that information between the city and you. And so having a good relationship and understanding your values, your goals, your vision for the city is vital. Same thing with department heads. It's like with management, you can manage in different directions. There's managing up, there's managing down, there's managing to the side. And it's mainly an issue of relationships, and communication, and education, helping people understand what their various roles are, and me understanding what their roles are and what their needs are. So that's a huge part of it. Getting to know other organizations in the city, Chamber of Commerce, the school district, the fire district, the county, neighboring cities, any of these groups that are active that involve the city, I need to at least know who the people are and how to address issues that may arise. And then the contacts with the local, the contacts with state agencies in the area. One of the biggest helps for me in my current job is just knowing who the people are at Business Oregon, Infrastructure Finance Authority, and people at our local contact for PLCD and all these state agencies that impact us so much. Having a personal relationship and knowing who the right person is at those agencies to talk to about our issues is vital, because the issues are complex. The laws and regulations are very complex, and especially when it's somebody else's ordinances, somebody else's laws, I need to talk to them and get to know what do we really need to worry about, so that I don't waste my time reading through tons of regulations. I could go on, but those are the main things that come to mind that I'd be looking at initially.
Okay. How would you choose to communicate with the council, and why is that style effective with you?
How do you want to communicate? I've mentioned this in some of the interviews yesterday. When it comes to communication, you meet people where they are. I can't force you to any particular method. For example, right now I have three counselors that use email a lot, and a couple that will text me, and one that will only talk to me by phone or in person. And I can't insist on any one. Certainly I would love it if I could just shoot an email to the one counselor that doesn't have a computer. But I don't have that option. I have to meet him where he is. And so whatever communication the council wants, I'm perfectly happy to adapt to meet that need. The important thing being that the communication happens. It has to be frequent, has to be regular, and it has to include information on pressing issues. One area I've run into problems with is I have one counselor who wants to know everything as soon as possible, everything. And for example, we had budgeted for a new public works truck in this fiscal year, and we just made that purchase. That was authorized with the budget. It was, our policies, we followed all of our purchasing policies. That was all taken care of. He didn't want approval, he just wanted to know that we made the purchase. And that's fine. It wasn't, the reason I didn't bring it up with him before is that I didn't think that it was really a concern for him, and his approval had already been given in the budget. So that was a communication error that I am rectifying. We basically put it in place that, okay, I talked to him, what level of expenditure do you want to really know about? What level of issue do you want to make sure is in that memo? And I get the information to him. It's not, I don't, just because somebody asks a question or somebody wants to know something, I don't take offense or have an issue with it. I'm an open book.
Okay. Thank you.
Describe any experiences you may have had in collaborating with other government agencies.
When you're a small player like Stanfield, you have to collaborate. There's no option. You can't go your own road. There's some cities that are big enough to just do whatever they want. That's not where I've been, and I don't see that as likely. I like to collaborate with other agencies. I like to be good neighbors, and it's just more effective when you have those relationships in place. With Stanfield, I've been involved with committees with the library district on reviewing how their revenue is allocated. I've been involved in discussions with all of the law enforcement agencies for how the county's dispatch center was going to be funded and how that cost was going to be allocated to the agencies that use it. I've been involved with groups for, there's an effort in Umatilla County to get, the west side of the county, to get a trail system that connects all the cities. Get a trail system planned that will connect all the cities' trail plans. And the way I see it, first of all, we're not limited by the boundaries of our own jurisdiction. There's a lot of regional issues that affect our citizens because people come and go, they work elsewhere. You're not going to have some self-contained group of people. And so those relationships are vital to cultivate, and it's important to be involved. The other reason for example, with our police dispatch center, I saw it as crucial to be involved because the initial plan that the sheriff's office put out would have crippled us and would have been so expensive that we would have just had to essentially either do without dispatch, which was really not an option, or just outsource our police department. And those were just not acceptable options for us. And so I saw being involved as the way to shape the discussion a way to get our point of view across and make sure that the end result was something that we could live with. And we did. Originally, it was a population-based model that the sheriff's office put forward that would have been prohibitively expensive for us. And then later, I didn't get everything I wanted, but I managed to shape it toward more of an assessed value calculation, where the idea being, I actually said this in the community, but you know, what we really would like to have, if we could do it, is a dispatch district that everybody paid into that handled this, and then none of us would have to worry about this. I said, what would be the process for doing that? It's going to be based on assessed value of all the properties. And so why don't we just take the assessed value of our various jurisdictions and the assessed value of the whole and use that data to figure out how we're going to divide up these costs. And the great thing about that is it basically made ability to pay a big part of the equation, so that smaller cities that didn't have as much funding were able to afford it, because we didn't have the high value land that the police were going to be protecting. And so that's what we did, and it turned out to be, you know, it certainly was an increase for us, but it wasn't nearly as much of an increase as it would have been if we weren't involved. So being involved in those other groups is vital.
Thank you.
Okay, do you see value in the city operating municipal services that directly compete with private industry? For example, the City of Sandy's municipal internet service provider, SandyNet.
The value, city services should be what the populace demands and what the populace wants. And I don't like competing with the private industry, but I've seen a lot of times when the private industry doesn't offer a service that people want, or it's too expensive for the private industry, not a profit motive for them to do it. And so those are things to be done carefully. I would want to look at, okay, is there anybody interested in doing this? Why are they not doing it? Is it something we're doing that's keeping them from offering the service? Or is it just that they can't make enough money to do it? And if that's the issue, and it's something that we can do without being a burden on taxpayers and without, without directly competing with them, by all means, let's improve quality of life and get that service out there. The wrinkle I think that you're in now is that you've got a great internet service that the city runs, and private. It looks. I talked to Scott Lazenby about how it started, and you didn't have people offering that service in the beginning, and so it was entirely appropriate and wonderful that the city stepped in and found a way to get that service offered. Now you have something that other cities are jealous of, and that other residents are, from outside the city would love to have. I don't know if private industry has become upset since then, but it's 20 years down the road, and it's a little late for them to complain about it. It's something you want to be careful with to make sure that you're being fair to private industry, but I'm fairly pragmatic. I wouldn't want to give up something that is enjoyed by the public just for a principle. But again, this is just from my outside perspective, and I haven't looked at that in detail. But I would be very careful about any other service that I started up that directly competed, because there's got to be a need, there's got to be a desire for the public, and there's got to be a void in the public marketplace to fill.
Thank you.
Our next city manager will inherit the task of implementing the next phases of the Sandy Community Campus project. How would you manage the expectations of the residents with the reality of the financial constraints of the city?
And communicating information to them. I think giving the public an understanding of the funding sources and how much money we're really talking about. You got to be careful how you communicate that, because a lot of folks, when they see big numbers, they just kind of, their eyes roll back in their head, and it's overwhelming. You need to make sure you have a clear and simple way of communicating what it is. The problem with aquatic centers is that they are prohibitively expensive, and nobody breaks even with fees. It's just not going to happen. And so giving people an understanding of what it costs to run that system and what it costs to do the other things that they want with the campus is important. If you can break it down to individual components and say, well, this bit costs this much, this bit costs this much, this bit costs this much, this is how much annually it takes to operate these things. And just make them aware of what the realities of it are. Now, if they want something different, yeah, you can do anything you want, but it's going to cost money. And that you got to give people options of how they would like to pay for what they want. And if it's just a nice to have thing, let them know this is not necessarily vital to the project, but here's what it would cost you, and here's how we would suggest you pay for it. What do you think? People like to feel empowered to make decisions, and information is crucial for doing that. So there's going to have to be, I don't know what public meetings you've had already on the subject. I assume that the master plans that are in place right now have had some public input. That people need to be reminded of that, of say, this is what you said you wanted, this is how much it's going to cost, this is where we're planning on funding it from. If you have other views, please let us know, but this was discussed before and we're happy to discuss it more and then outline the procedure for any adjustments to that master plan in the future.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, we've come to the end of our questions. Our last question to you is, what question do you have for us?
I enjoy hearing especially from elected officials, what it is they love about their community and what got them involved in the council. Like, what motivated you to be a part of this organization, and what keeps you from resigning? Because sometimes it's really not very much fun. There's got to be some motivation that allows you to deflect public criticism and go on.
Sure. I'll start. I've been on the council for 12 years, and I keep doing it because I just love the place I live and feel like I'm doing a good job of service of listening to our community and bringing, making a great place to live, work, and play here in Sandy. And I have 3 kids who have made me want to continue even more. This is a great place where they want to come back to live after they grow up.
I'd echo a lot of the same. I had absolutely zero interest in being an elected official at any point in my life. And I think being involved in the budget process and also seeing how much this community cares about itself and being able to play a vital role in that on council, I think is probably one of the important value pieces. This last time after the appointment was ending for me and then making the decision to move through the election process, I did a lot of thinking with my family if I was willing to walk away at this point or if the involvement engagement was still important to me, and it was. And so I think that's an avenue I had no idea was a part of this role going into it. I value that a lot.
I got into it initially due to how I felt the business community was treated by the city. I wanted to make some improvements and changes there. But over the years, one of the biggest things that has affected me and my drive to do this, I'll give you a quick example. In 2009, a landslide wiped out my business. Complete and total loss, January 2nd. So it was freezing cold. There were literally hundreds of community members, people I didn't know, pulled on their winter gear, their muck boots, came out and helped me dig through 22,000 cubic yards of mud and snow and ice to try to salvage what we could, and never asked for anything. So the people are the reason.
I went to grade school here and moved back about 4 years ago, so it's been tremendous change, of course, over that period of time. I've held other elected positions, like at the state legislature, but I find this is much more rewarding because it's close to the community, being able to work with neighbors and friends, So I've really enjoyed this experience so far.
And I come from a background of a government employee, and for all the reasons why that make no sense, is I was not involved in community elected positions because of some conflict of interest rules and regulations. And so when I retired in the turn of the century, it always sounds old when I say that, but it is anyway, I decided I wanted to be involved in something that my kids had grown up in and had moved on. And so I did that, and I started out with the Planning Commission, and I think that really made a difference. I got involved much the same way as the mayor, in that I was concerned about the relationships between the city and the business communities and how that seemed to be a little difficult. And I really like being able to serve. So that's how I got involved, and stay in that way, because I think there's a lot to be done here. We have a lot of growth in the city and a lot of conflicting issues, and I love being able to find a solution for them.
The only other question I have is actually a question back to you. Is there anything about my candidacy, or do you have any reservations about me as a, considering me for this position that haven't been addressed? Anything that I can clear up, or any concerns you might have?
I don't think I've got anything.
Not at this time, no. Thanks. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Appreciate your interest and your time.
My pleasure.
I was hoping to find one ranch style.
Yeah. Council, this is Heidi Bell.
Hello.
Hello.
And they're
Hello.
going to introduce themselves to you as they go. Thank you for having me.
John. Nice meeting you.
Bill.
Jan, Heidi.
And Carl, see you again.
Hi. Good morning. Hi.
Hi, Kim.
Hi, yes.
Good morning, David Doofman.
Good morning. Hi.
All right, well, I'll go ahead and kick us off. Remembering what I have to do. My name is Jeremy Feasel, and I'm the City Council President. I've been on the City Council for 12 years. It's my 12th year, and I was on Planning Commission for 2 years prior to that.
John Hamblin. I was on Budget Committee for 2 years prior to becoming a counselor, and was up for re-election. I was actually thinking about this. This was 2 years ago that I was re-elected, I think.
Yeah.
So, okay.
And I'm Bill King. I'm the mayor. Been the mayor for 8 years.
I'm Jan Lee. I'm the newest member. I've been here about a half year almost, and was on the Budget Committee prior to that.
And I'm Carl Exner. I've been here 8 years as council, and before that, 4 years on Planning Commission for the city.
We have a series of 15 questions. We'll alternate asking a question, so if you're ready.
I'm ready.
Okay, Carl.
Right. I'll get to start out, Heidi. So starting off, what makes you the best leader for the city of Sandy?
Oh, great question. So I have been preparing myself to be in a leadership role as a city manager since I was a young person. I grew up in a family that was involved with giving back to the community. So I embrace that spirit, and I know that the city of Sandy does too. I went on, I'm a Ford Family Scholar, so I embraced that spirit of giving and volunteerism in high school, and was able to choose just about any school in the state of Oregon I wanted to go to. I went to Linfield College and studied political science, and you learn a lot about civic engagement and leadership through that curriculum. And then worked for the city of Amity. I actually worked for a law firm for a while, which has been really helpful in this field as well. But then I eventually went on and have a master's degree in public administration, public policy, which is essential to understanding how to be a city manager. And then while I was there, I was asked to join a nonprofit. It's not a degree, it's a certificate program, but it's at the master's level. And I was also asked by the university's law school to do a mediation program there. So I have a certification in mediation as well. With all of that background and growing up in a small town, I grew up in Amby, by the way, and my parents owned a business in Wakefield. I think all of these things together can demonstrate to you that I am a civic leader and deeply engaged in how communities look, and it's just my mind frame and who I am. The city of Sandy, to me, looks like it's looking for somebody who is a go-getter and who has a demonstrated background, that they are ready every day and are moving forward. And that's exactly who I am. I think if you look through the activities that I've accomplished on my resume in the last 6 years at the City of Donald, you'll see that I am a go-getter. James LaBar, who works for the governor's office, he calls it the Donald hustle. And every day I'm working to make that place a better place. I have there my regular duties, but also I have put myself into some challenging situations to get the experience. So I had one of the quickest UGB that the state has ever had. I heard it was the quickest, unchallenged, which was a huge accomplishment. At the same time, I tackled a development code that took in a lot of considerations and worked with our businesses to make sure that it was both business friendly, but it also did exactly what Sandy's been talking about, is how to handle the growth, right? And to make sure that you're representing the past and who you are and not losing that small town feel and charm, but at the same time being able to embrace growth. And then in addition to that, the QD that's going to come on board is challenging us to think about, well, it's a agri-hood, which will be one of the first in the state of Oregon. And it's a collaboration, so it speaks, it's like, how do you manage that agricultural feel that they have in that small town, right? So we're incorporating that within the new neighborhoods, and it will be surrounded around a working farmer. The HOA will pay for a working farmer to be there, which is a really cool concept. Open parks concept, lots of parkland, living in smaller units and being outside more. And so that's where, and then in addition to that, it'll be a smart neighborhood, and we're partnering with, like, PGE is really stepping up to the plate. The governor's office awarded the project her top seed of $750,000 to be used toward water and sewer infrastructure, which is a drop in the barrel for water and sewer, but it's a really nice start to get people on board for partnering. So Sandy is looking for somebody where innovation meets elevation, and I think that is exactly who I am and the type of skill set that I can bring to you.
Thank you.
What do you do when the individual council member asks you to perform a task that is not approved by the entire council and puts the city at risk?
Can I ask a follow-up question? Was that task assigned to me during a council meeting? Or is that task assigned to me like a city councilor is emailing me and I know that it's a...
So we're specifying as an individual council member, so we'd assume it's not in a council setting.
Okay, so that individual counselor comes to me or emails me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, got it. Thank you. So what I work very strongly with the mayor position, and I never believe that a mayor should be left in an unknown situation. So I would just let the mayor know, because essentially the council people are also should be reporting in good communication with their mayor. So I would let the mayor know, and I would brainstorm where we're going to go from there. So if it's something little, then we just give them what they need, because everybody needs education too, right? So especially if you're new to council, what we do, I partner with all the small cities in North Marion County, and we bring right off the bat. So right now I'm working on, with the Council of Governments there is going to do a land use training, and then we do an organ ethics training with Olivia and Tammy from the Organ Ethics Commission. And then we also do an elected leaders training right off the bat. Sometimes with the COG and sometimes with their league, who gives me the lowest price point for their services. And so then we come together with about 8 cities, and it's really neat to be able to meet everybody kind of right off the bat. It works well. So sometimes it's just little things that come up, and you say, oh, this is where you can find the development code online, or this is what really industrial zoning looks like, or yes, this is what our code says about RVs parked overnight on the street, and so those kinds of things are easy to answer. But as the relationship, maybe that person keeps coming at me and asking for more and more, and then that's maybe the point where the mayor says, what's up? Is there something that we need to do? And I say, is there something that you feel like you would like more of, right? Some more training, or tell me what you're after. I like to ask people, okay, what's the root of this question, you know, because that's where I can really help to serve, help you to be better at your job too. Is that?
Thank you.
How do you view the role of the council in working with the city manager and their administration? And how would you handle a council member monopolizing a department or staff's time on a specific issue?
Mm-hmm. So I view everybody essentially after the same goals, right? I value goal setting very highly, and I know that you do as well in Donald and Sandy, and you do here in Sandy. And so, sorry, I got off track when I said that. So I value the relationships as everybody essentially working towards the same goal. The council's working in policy setting, and the staff is working towards achieving all of those, right? So I am a big believer in open communication and transparency and being able to give everybody information. So what I do on Fridays, one of my mentors does this, and he has suggested, it's a city manager of Sheridan, his name is Frank Sheridan, and what he did is working well for Donald too, which is I give out a Friday journal, and it's sent out to the planning commissioners, to the city council, and to the staff, and each staff member, well, each department member gives one or two things that they think is important for that entire group to know. And that's been working really well for us. Because it also allows each one of you, while you're out in your communities, you know, if a citizen or a resident comes up to you or a business owner and says, hey, why was the road closed, or whatever, right? And then you have that little tidbit of knowledge in your back pocket. So I think that that is really important. I'm sorry, Mayor, would you mind reading the whole question?
Sure, sure. How do you view the role of the council in working with the city manager and their administration? And how would you handle a council member monopolizing a department and or staff's time on a specific issue?
Okay, so definitely collaboratively for the first part. And now I'll talk about the second part. I'm happy to talk more about the first part if you'd like me to. But the second part, the monopolization of time, so I would work very closely with the department heads and have a relationship with them where they felt comfortable letting me know that that was happening, because there's probably chances where I wouldn't even know that it was really happening, you know, especially through email. So I always have an open office and expect people to work hard, but I also expect them to have two-way communication with me and to let me know what's happening. I would once again follow the same procedures as I said in step number 1, which is I would address it, try to figure out the root of the problem, and then obviously let the mayor know too. To brainstorm, because we're back at working collaboratively, right?
Yep.
Right.
What is your experience and approach in dealing with the news media and maintaining positive relationships?
Sure, I definitely deal with the news media. One of the hot topics, of course, is growth for any city, but especially in where I'm from now. We not only have the Thousand Friends of Bergen, but we also have the Friends of French Prairie, which is a local land use watchdog. So anytime that anybody contacts the city of Donald, the staff knows that I'm the point person for the communication. I'm open for that to change if you have a person on staff that does that, or if the mayor likes to be that person. But I do find it best if there's one person that is giving the research information, the background information. I think that that is very helpful. I have a background from Linfield in mass communications and print, actually, and I know the power of each word. And I also have crafted many public interest surveys and know how important word choice is. And so when you're speaking with the media, you need to be pretty conscientious of every word that comes out of your mouth, because they love to find those words that they can take and run with. But it also holds true, I believe, with social media nowadays. So as people are putting more, as cities want to participate and share more information, it's really important that people that are posting information on social media are aware of the word choice, and that perhaps that they have had some background training in that too, to be conscientious. So I would say I have quite a bit of training. I also, I'm the media contact person for Amity and for Donald. and have not had any issues in the background. And then I also reach out to them to help them and invite the media to our events, because we have some really great events, and to our open house presentation. So I think it's gone well.
All
We don't
right.
have any letters to the editors, how's that?
All right. What experience have you had in labor negotiations, and can you give an example of the outcome?
Yeah, so this is probably one of the only places that you will find me lacking in probably what my competitors can offer. However, with that being said, I have a mediation, certified mediation, certificate in mediation, sorry, and that has been a powerful tool for me. I'm able to fall back on those skills. I use them regularly, to help people that are upset at City Hall. I spoke yesterday to your staff about the way that I handle that. I imagine that with the labor negotiations, part before you go into that room is you need to be completely knowledgeable about the contracts and what people are asking and why they would be asking that. So I like to place myself a lot of times in other people's shoes too, and to try to find a middle ground. I've worked through labor issues, definitely at the City of Donald. In the City of Amity, I was the point person for the for the union there, which was a helpful thing, but we didn't really have major issues, which was nice. I know that they exist. But I think that putting yourself into other people's positions and thinking about why, another thing when sometimes we do, instead of just citing tickets for code enforcement, I'll invite people into City Hall with the mayor, especially for larger ones, and we try to find a middle ground with those people. So in a lot of ways, that's kind of a similar thing. People are really passionate and hot. Like they love these things outside their house, right? So you have to find some middle ground. And I usually start off the conversation saying, listen, nobody's going to win today, right? What the goal of this meeting is going to be is to find a middle ground. So you're going to have to give up some, the city's going to have to give up some, and let's talk about what that middle ground looks like. But what I want you to share with me are your top things, So, and then, I let people go and I let people talk and I try to take notes. And then I repeat back the notes to people and say, are these your issues? Am I missing something here? And then I let them know our issues as a city, and these are our big issues. And then I worked with the mayor once, and he had a really powerful tool that he shared with me. And he said, he expects people to have a solution, because if you have a problem and you don't have a solution to the problem, you're actually still part of the problem, right? And so I usually use that sort of mind frame too to help people to get into the mindset. Because if you're really upset about something, you've probably said, well, what they should do is, right? And so you already have some sort of idea when you come in that way. I know that, so I think having that background, I feel confident that I could definitely be in a room of labor negotiations. You also have a city attorney that I would consult and be in connection with. You have an HR person that I would be in connection with. So I wouldn't operate alone, which I think is wise. And keep the council, of course, apprised as they need to know, and the mayor too. Once again, back into communication. All right.
Okay, thank you. My next question is, describe the most successful capital improvement project that you were responsible for, and what made it successful?
Okay, great question. I do a lot of public works and capital maintenance programs, so I'm gonna pick one.
Just one. Yeah, it's
Just
fine.
one.
Yeah.
Okay. I think probably the fire booster pump was probably the best example at our water plant, only because in 2012 the economy wasn't real hot, and we have 4 lots that are industrial lots. One of them quite large, and they all needed to become shovel ready in order to get some bites, right, and to get those filled up. So we don't, you don't really necessarily have a result. This is my opinion. Other people might have other opinions, but I am less likely to use public money for something that you can get grants for, right? And less likely to use the public's money for something that only benefits a certain amount of properties or development. So what we did is I started writing some grants. I have a great relationship with the IFA, which is the Infrastructure Finance Authority, and the regional solutions team, but also the person with the IFA, Michelle. And her and I started talking about what we needed to make that shovel ready and what would be desirable. And so we did some of those low-hanging fruit things, which were funded. But then we worked with IFA to get money for a fire booster pump and to put water lines. So the water tower is on one side, and then there's a high naturalized petroleum gas line that's in by the railroad tracks. And so you essentially have to be able to bore underneath of those. And the cost came back, pretty high for those projects at like $250,000 to $300,000. So we said, well, what can be done? So I asked Michelle, and we applied for some money, and were able to get it. And ultimately, that has been very desirable for developers because it offsets the cost, for them to come right in. And why that's also powerful is the fire booster pump is able to supply the whole city of Donald in case of an emergency with a higher amount of water to come out for like a major fire or some sort of incident, right? So it boosts the fire pressure out of the tanks and out of the ground. And so I think that was actually a big win because it wasn't just about being for a development or a certain area. It also ended up benefiting the entire town for emergency management, which feels really good. The end result of all of that was two things. One, 250,000 square foot plant, Hazelnut Growers of Oregon and Wilco at the distribution center have located in a 250,000 square foot building, which is awesome. We were able to secure them from the city of Cornelius, sorry Cornelius, but we're happy to Donald with them. And they are doing things so neat. You can Google them or look on their news about them. Even if I don't get the job, you should definitely check out the things that they're doing with the hazelnuts that you eat. And then in addition to that, it ended up as an Oregon Lottery commercial, which the Oregon Lottery also came in and stepped up and did something for it too. So that was really awesome. And they used local construction company as well, and they were the actors in the commercial. You can also see that commercial on YouTube or on our city's webpage. Yeah, I think that was a good thing because it shows collaboration, thinking outside the box, being fiscally conservative, management of money, making lots of people happy, and helping with emergency management too.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to a long story.
That's all right. We're looking for that.
How and when do you determine if you need to involve the city attorney in addressing city issues?
Sure. I think I am a person that is aware that every action has a reaction, and I am a person that doesn't take too long to make choices or decisions because I feel pretty being educated and confident as a city manager. But since I worked in that law firm, I actually have a pretty good understanding of what legal ramifications can be. So I contact them when I also let the mayor know and say, do you think that this is a good time? This is what I'm thinking about. This is what the code says. This is what the development code says. This is what we've done in the past, right? And then do we have some other questions that we can answer? Because you have to keep in mind, I'm also pretty conscientious about spending money, and the city attorney, he's an outside service, and as is yours, correct? Yeah. Elser, is that what I?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. And so I, do my due diligence. Sometimes the city attorney, I also call the legal work of the cities to make sure that they have not already answered the question, and then I follow up. But I tend to write all the resolutions because those are something that I can do. He will proofread them if they're major resolutions, but a lot of times other cities have already wrote essentially the same resolution that I'm trying to accomplish. But all ordinances are written by the city attorney. I draft them a lot of times, and then he just goes in and edits them for me. And then right now I'm working with him jointly for sidewalks. We're doing a sidewalk program, so he needs to do the lien paperwork. He usually does like a template, and then I input the information as needed. So, and then I contacted the League of Working Cities, or CIS initially for the pre-loss team for any sort of employment needs. And then they say, okay, now it's time, we got this, initial paperwork, now it's time for you to get a hold of the city attorney. So, okay, give them a call. So I think I have a lot of confidence about when it's appropriate to contact him and mindfulness of the city's budget and talk about it, with the mayor serving as a resource, or in this case also as, HR, but there's a lot of outside resources to help you too, just to help run by. And I have a good number of mentors too in the city management world that can help me.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Share your thoughts and experiences on cities operating a biennial budget. Also, what is your philosophy on departments carrying over unused funds into the next budget cycle?
Yeah, I read your budget and then I was like, well, what happened to last year? It's and I was like, this is neat. And so my mind, because I'm a total nerd for city management world stuff. And so my mind immediately was like, well, what does this mean? So I am excited for this question. I don't really have an opinion. If you like it and it works for you, keep it, right? But I think that it allows some freedom. It seems I don't have experience with a biennial. I think it's pretty uncommon, is right?
Yes.
Yeah. So the pluses and the minuses are probably obvious, right? Like it allows less staff time annually working on the budget, so that's nice, I would imagine. But then as maybe something pops up through the year and you're like, oh my gosh, there's this opportunity, or there's this huge cost, and then you have to go through the ramifications, whether it's just a simple resolution to change the budget, or perhaps it's a supplemental budget, right, which requires a little bit more work. So I think that's the good or the bad of it. But then department heads, I saw that too.
On the
where you
carryover,
allow them
yes.
to carry it over. Sure. Well, as long as they're doing a good job of that, right? So I think there's some supervision there. So as long as they're not using it to its advantage, or taking advantage of it. So you can. And the city manager should probably be aware of the ways that people take advantage of it, which, in my opinion, is not doing budget or not doing certain things that need to be done, right? Keeping up with your maintenance and keeping up with maintenance especially, just so that essentially the following year, or in 2 years, so if you don't do all of your regular maintenance, right, and then 2 years you have more money and then you can buy something cool. Okay, so that's important. But I also really, I have valued, like I'm saying, this is a new concept to me and I'm fine thinking about it, but I really value every year that we're able to see our costs and to see if there's any trends. And I keep pretty close track of, the budget. I do like water, sewer rate studies, also paid for by grants, by the way. But those are really powerful tools to have people come out at an outside perspective, look at your infrastructure and say, this is how much step money, fixed money you have, and this is when this can happen, like the water reservoir cleaning, right? Or this is when you're going to be able to get new windows in your water plant, right? And so then you're able to budget those out. And so then those things become front and center when I go to help put the budget together, okay? So I like to have these infrastructure plans where we're going. And so as long as you have the plans and those things are coming out in the year that they're supposed to in a biennial budget, then I think it's all good. But you also, I think, as a manager, should be really conscientious and keep up with like reports and financial reports and make sure that things are getting done in a timely manner and that they're not waiting to the very end. So I think that there's some back and forth there.
Thank you.
But it's neat. Have you've had it for a long time, or did you
Yes.
switch?
It's been a while.
Been a while.
Yeah.
Yep. 20+ years.
20+ years.
All right, I've got the next one. Sandy has recently experienced rapid growth in both population and tourism, and this has led to changing needs in our community. Describe any experiences you have in this area and how you would lead the city through these changes.
Yeah, so same thing. Rapid growth makes people nervous that have lived here for a long time. Some people, in general, some of those people probably are fine with it. But it's also, and some people are good, they're like, oh, finally my mom can find a place to live, right? She's thinking about retiring. So, but part of what I think rapid growth, the challenge is allowing the community to know that the city is being thoughtful in the way that they're doing it. So we're back at the importance of communication, right? So the city should be working to communicate with the public about, we do have plans for what your water and sewer infrastructure is. We know what those needs are. We know what those costs are, right? We know here in Sandy, you know, you have transportation, it seems like is a major concern, especially in the downtown core area, and that's an ODOT. So, you know, maybe putting out more information about your relationship with ODOT, or if there's any sort of plans or a TSP or transportation system plan that's out there, allowing the public to view that, put that on your website, putting in your newsletter, you know, don't forget to read this, maybe putting like a short version of it together, because people don't probably want to read a whole TSP, like some highlight notes or something. So I think that's one of the best things that you can do, is to listen to the public, listen to those people that are the ones that are really loud and outspoken that you don't always want to embrace fully, right? But they can be helpful, because sometimes those, you know, those criers are out there talking, and so getting them some of the answers that they're looking for, or at least getting them to the place where they know that you have heard them and they feel like addressed. I think that is very important to handle growth right off the bat. The second thing to handle growing pains is to make sure that you're following through. So, you know, when you do your UGB, you're required to have all these studies and all these plans done, and to make sure that you're aware of those, that your staff is aware of those, and that you're planning for those in your budget, and putting those in your budget, and to make sure that you're taking the money that's appropriate from developers, so in your SDCs. Also thinking outside the box, like, is this the best system for us? And some of these plans were written, you know, years ago, and since then you can add, you know, cool features or science. Science is always changing, right, for water and sewer. So I like to look outside the boundaries too, and hear what other cities are doing, how they're overcoming those obstacles. And I like to hold public houses, open houses, every now and then throughout the year, maybe one or two in a year, and just to generally get what people are saying, you know, the pulse of the community, if you will. Right now we're working on a survey in Donald too, with the new mayor coming aboard. But I have this idea of, are we communicating the information correctly nowadays, right? So we put together a newsletter. Because we just did our UGB, and some of the individuals said, I couldn't find any information. Well, and the city always goes, well, we did, you know, right? But we had a whole page on the website with all kinds of information. We had information in the newsletters. We had, you know, posts on the Facebook. We had open houses, and so that feels like a lot of a, you know, come here, do this. We had a feedback form that you directly submit online to give information. But I got to thinking, maybe there's other ways that people want to be heard. So the same thing in Sandy, you know, maybe people are into podcasts now on their way to work or something. And so this is going to be an interesting thing. So I think with growth, you have to be really open, transparent. You have to follow through. You have to budget for it. You have to think outside the box. You have to be innovative and collaborative. And then there was a second part to that question. I don't remember.
Describe any experiences you may have had in this area and how you would lead the city through the changes.
I think that should be.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
All right. What will your first steps be upon assuming responsibility in this position?
Can you say, what would my first what?
What will your first steps be
Okay.
upon assuming responsibility in this position?
Yes, so it's about three things. But my first steps, I would like a general tour of city facilities. You know, at this point, I really don't even know what the city manager's office looks like. So I think it would be important to get kind of a lay of the land. That would be really good. And then I would read make sure I have a copy of the charter in my office, make sure I have a copy of the municipal code in my office, and the development code, make sure I read through that and get a good understanding. I'd like to meet with the department heads right away and get their feel for the pluses and the minuses, things that they think are important for me to know right off the bat. Look more closely at your goals, because I've seen them online, but understand where you're at with each one of those to achieving them. Goal setting is huge for me. We do it at the city. We also do it at the staff level, and we set short-term, which is a 6-month goal, and a long-term goal for each mention the staff members. I shared this yesterday with the department heads as well. I think I did. And then as well with your line staff, that's how I function. And then I like to share those with everybody, you know, whether it's in a email format or it's verbally, because sometimes when we have goals, we're like, oops, you're gonna need something from me, especially the finance person, right? So I think it's important. And then when those goals are achieved, we do like milestone, like little successes, and let people know. So I think there's a lot of socialization at first, you know, getting myself acquainted with the people that work here, lay of the land, and then there's the documentation part where I need to make sure that I have the appropriate paperwork in my office. But I'm not going to come in and make any big changes or anything, so you don't need to worry about that. I'm not a person that likes drama. I like things to be good. I like people to be heard, but I also like a very professional office and city, and I like people to work hard every morning. I like people to come to work positive and to try to work as hard as they can. But I think that's right away what you can expect from me, is to make sure that I have the information I need to be successful for you.
Okay. Sorry, I was taking some notes there. So I'm next. How do you choose to communicate with the council, and why is that style effective for you?
I think very transparent communication is appropriate. I do the Friday journal is really important. I think it is really valuable. Sometimes it's like takes a little extra time, you know, at the end of the week to put together, but I ask and I check in with the council too, and I say, is the quality of the Friday journal what you're looking for? Have we missed the mark? You want me to keep doing it? No, yes. Part of me is like, dang, no. No, but it is a really powerful tool. My communication is like what you're getting from me today too, I think. Professional during council meeting. Also, kind of a lighthearted person, right? Because if you're not having a good time in your job, you're not going to do a very good job. So I hope you don't mind somebody with a sense of humor, or that enjoys her work and likes to smile. But I'm a very transparent person. I will tell you exactly what is going on. I have no secrets. I think that works very well in government. You know, I will if you ask about something that is, I have a good head on my shoulders too, so I will ask you questions, probably follow-up questions, like, why are you asking this? Is there something that you need to share with me? I'm not going to share any sort of HR information until I check in with Angie. I'm sensitive about that. But you can expect a weekly email from me. You can expect that if you email me individually or you phone call me individually, that I'm going to get back to you as soon as possible so that you are prepared. But one of my biggest things is to make sure that the council never feels caught off guard. I think that's really important skill set for a city manager to have.
Describe any experiences you may have had collaborating with other government agencies.
Yeah, that's really important. Sorry, excuse me. I collaborate with government agencies frequently. Actually, I'm going to share, so I'll just say a couple of ways that we do that. One is with education and training, every 2 years, that I spoke about earlier. And then I work with other cities in the area to help them to know what other resources are out there. You know, I serve as a mentor or a leader for some of the other small cities in North Marion County, and then including their mayors too. And then we work. But one of the story I really want to share with you, another story here, is with the city of Jervis, which was a really cool project that we did. The city wanted to figure out that, because essentially GK Machine had come in and they're one of the biggest employers, right, in the city of Donald. And they came in and said, you know, we have attrition problems here. We can't hold on to employees. And when we do their exit interviews, it's because they say that they get 1 or 2 years of training and then another manufacturing company they can get hired at real quickly that's closer to their home. They have people that drive from like Lebanon and outside of Vancouver every day. So those drives get really long, for those. So we said, all right, here we go with this urban growth expansion. We need to find some residential homes. So I started getting price quotes. We're figuring out what we need to, which is a housing building, HOA, which is a housing opportunity analysis, and then your EOB, economic opportunity. I haven't got it. Acronyms. But anyway, so we started needing to get all of our reports ready, and I said, my goodness, who's gonna do all this work, and how should we approach this project? So I'm working with the city of Jervis on other projects, and I said to their city manager at the time, who transitioned out actually right as the project got started, but I said, what if we had, and I'm working with the DLCD at this point too, and she's like, these are the things that you need to do, our representative. And I said, oh, what if we did something different, where we got some students to do some of the legwork and the research work, and that gives opportunity for, master's level students or beyond to be able to get their foot in the door, right, in their career. So Angela said, there's a RARE program at the U of O, which is where I went to school, and I was like, oh yeah, the RARE program. So it's I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's like a graduate program, after graduate program. So we worked in that program. The local has to have $20,000. So I asked actually Governor Kitzhaber and DLCD if they would be able to fund that money, because for the program that goes like this, can we use one RARE participant? Both cities need the same studies done. The cities are within miles of each other, so I imagine the basic stuff isn't that different. So would you be willing to pay for the RARE participant for the cities of Donald and Jervis on our behalf, and then we can get these studies done? And his office said that was a great resource for them to sponsor, or a great project for them to sponsor, and that was awesome too, because we then had this RARE participant come in, and it worked well, right? It was an opportunity for somebody to get their foot in the door for their education, and I still serve as a mentor for him and check in with him. It's a really neat where his career has gone. And then we had a planner that oversaw it, our outside planner service oversaw the whole process, and then so they were able to sign off on the documents and save the city thousands of dollars, right? So that was a really cool program with Jervis that we did. And then now Jervis is at the same point we are. They're being able to, well, they're in the bottom part of doing their UGB, and we took off and went with it right afterward. But yeah, so it set 2 cities up for success.
Thank you.
At like a high level of success too, right? Yeah, it's really neat.
Okay, do you see value in the city operating municipal services that directly compete with private industry? For example, the City of Sandy's municipal internet service provider, SandyNet.
Yeah, I have been really intrigued by what you do here. I think it's awesome, because what I can see is that you're able to provide a high quality service at a lower rate than the private industry. So I think that is really awesome. I don't have a lot of background in managing private industry. Well, I guess private at like the board level or like the finance level, because I managed a large scale restaurant, 80 people, 100 people, depending on the season, for a long time. But yeah, I think it's a great place for government to get involved, especially if that's what the will of the people is, right? So as long as you don't have people coming in here and they're saying, SandyNet isn't working out for us, we would like you to think about having whatever Comcast or Frontier Wave services in your town only, or if you're looking at your bottom dollars and your budgets for that, and you're not meeting the costs very well, right? There's probably some supplements that happen to get that going and to keep it going. But at some point, if the council and the public says that this isn't working out, then we should move on from that. There was an interesting study in grad school. It was a question: should a city run a roller coaster? Kind of the same thing. Like if lots of people are coming to ride the roller coaster, and it's meeting the goods, and the people like it. It's, you know, but it's the same kind of thing. Like it's you know, the same thing with your transit system, right? As well, and those can be private as well. So as long as the people that live here, the businesses that live here say it's a great service, you, the council, feels like it's a great service, your staff is qualified to pull it off, then keep it.
Thank you.
Does that answer that for you, or?
Yes.
Something? Okay.
All right, I've got the next. Our next city manager will inherit the task of implementing the next phases of the Sandy Community Campus project. How would you manage the expectations of the residents with the reality of the financial constraints of the city?
I think this sounds like the most exciting project. So I have already been thinking about different ideas and ways and how to get going on it. I watched a TED Talk the other night about the power of, do you know a fourth of your residents are children, and kids use your parks. So, and I saw this in Donald. We did a charrette with the University of Oregon Green Cities program. I don't know if you're familiar with that program, but I actually started that, and it's worked in about 10 other cities. But really great ideas came out of the charrette. And so what happened there was we had an open house, and we made sure that lots of kids were invited, you know, and we did these really cool programs. The Green Cities kids, at the University of Oregon, they designed the day for us, right? And so we all got to engage in different activities. And one of the topics at hand was parks and what to do with your park, right? And we learned through that process that the kids, so there's a skate park, and then halfway through has a cement wall, and the other half is basketball courts. And the cement wall, we learned, made little kids especially nervous about what was on the other side. Right? So they thought somebody might grab them, which is the worst thing you can imagine for a park to feel like. So we learned about that, and we asked them, of course, if they had ideas. And then we later worked with the National Art Society at the high school level, and they now have murals on both sides. And then we learned that people wanted like a gazebo to stand there, because it rains a lot. And so they want some sort of a shelter area. And so now the high school has a woodshop class this year. Never had a woodshop class before. Somebody in the community stepped up to teach that. And then the 4-H kids are going to put a green roof on the top of it too, which is really cool. But these are the things that, you know, you never know what can come out of it when you bring a whole bunch of people together in your community. So I've been in and out of your parks here and looking at them and what they have to offer, and looking at the ratings online of what they have. And I think it would be awesome for you guys to make sure that you're including your younger people in the population, that we're going out and we're doing some outreach, that we're submitting drawings or colorings of these, you know, whether it's a family, encourage families at the dinner table to submit something together, you know, to draw something. So I think that there's a lot of really cool and creative ideas, and the building up, right, of all the ideas that can happen. And then we collect those and we evaluate them for trends. So we see things that start to come out of it, okay? So in that TED Talk, one of the things that they learned was that there was these footbridges, and you can walk over top and you can walk underneath of them. And they learned that the kids were afraid to walk under them. Similar in Donald, but that they were afraid to walk under them. So then they were able to light those up and to use, I think that they ended up using some sort of bright paint too underneath them, so it didn't feel like you were walking through, you know, like a tunnel, right? Anyway, so where I'm going with this is that I would love to do a really open process with your community and encourage people to submit ideas in whatever kind of format that they found appropriate. I'd love to work with the schools. I use every opportunity I can to do civic engagement and to teach young people that all of these jobs in the city exist. There is essentially a job for any person at any interest. Public works, right? All the way to city management, finance with numbers. So I think it would also be an opportunity for all of us to let the kids know that I think it's important that they know that you're volunteers too, right? Like, what does the city council do? What does it? And I always want the kids in Donald too to come to City Hall to feel welcome. And then when they grow up and they live in, like, you know, Chicago or whatever, they know what a City Hall roughly does. But so anyways, I see this as a huge opportunity. I have the end result in my head is a place where we're able to document how often people go there, and it's a big number, right? And people know that it exists. They take their family there when their family's visiting from out of town because they have a lot of pride in the area. They want to showcase it. It's just a showcase item for your city, and you're attracting some of your tourism there too. And people want to hang out and go downtown and eat dinner. So anyway, so I don't know what it looks like, but I definitely know that I'm prepared to do the process, excited to do the project, which means if somebody's this excited, they'll do a good job for you. and then the end result, we make sure that we have what we wanted. And we should talk about grants the whole way through. But the more you start to involve kids and you're documenting your results, the more powerful of a grant you can write. Just received one from the state of Oregon too for grants. $75,000 to put in a bathroom, which bathrooms cost like $50,000. This is not sad. Not that fair.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, we're down to the end, and this is the last question.
Mm-hmm.
And the question is what questions do you have for us?
Oh, shoot. Thought I was getting the real. Now what? My question for you is the same that I've done in your other 3 panels that you've invited me to come to, which is I firmly believe that an interview is a two-way street. So when I interview people for positions, I say to them off the bat, I say, we have a good culture here, we have a positive thing we got going on, but we can be quirky, right? And what I want to do is make sure that you're also interviewing us to make sure that you're a good fit, you feel comfortable being here. So with that being said, I would like you to each share with me a couple of words or what you think is important when you're interacting or with your city manager, or what you wish that city manager kind of their personality, or their skill set or their character that you think is important for that person to possess. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Anybody want to start?
I'll start.
Okay.
I can tell you with our current city manager, we can have a meeting on Monday night, regular council meeting, and we'll discuss a topic or multiple topics, I have a regularly scheduled Wednesday meeting, so 2 days later I get to meet with the city manager, and we discuss what's happening, plan for the next meeting, etc. The current city manager more often than not anticipates my questions, my needs, if you will, and is uncannily prepared for the questions I come up with. And that's something that is probably learned as you get to know the mayor, the council, and the city manager as you develop a relationship. But it's something I've really appreciated, that she's able to anticipate my thoughts. And that's probably difficult to do, but
What I appreciate about our city manager is she came in and cleaned up some difficult situations.
Mm-hmm.
So I really take a lot of merit from a person who's able to do that, to do the hard decisions and follow through.
Me too. I confronted some of that when I first came aboard too.
I have 2 things that I like about the way city runs. And first off, I've got a fair amount of experience here with the city council position and with the planning commission. And I've found that over the years, staff does a pretty decent job of being able to present things with a logical alternative answer for solving those problems. And in all the times I've been here, it's been very few times when I've really thought that this was inappropriate. The staff that we have is really sharp in that area, and I would love to see it continue that way. So that to me works good. We don't always agree about some things, but I like the way they present the proposals and the decisions that are needed. The second thing is I've been through 3 city managers now, and all of them have been an open door status. So I am one of those that likes to come in occasionally, and I even surprise city manager, and she seems to be good about letting the door stay open and be able to answer questions, and I like that a lot. I like being able to open door, and also the trust that when, in this case, the city manager is able to tell me things that are need to be kept confident. She is expecting that of me, and also willing to trust me to be able to be confident and confidentiality with those things. So that really helps a lot for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a few. I think just the constant communication with council and the city manager. Never like to be caught off guard, whether it's finding out about it when we're up here on stage, or just in caught off guard at Fred Meyer's buying groceries or whatever it is. So constant communication that way. The open door policy and the openness to be able to communicate with the directors individually. Obviously not abused, but being able to have that communication as well in that policy. And also just the thinking outside the box. And we've always had that ability to do that in Sandy. With our city managers, just think outside the box, with kind of our tagline, and being able to find ways to do things that maybe aren't traditional in that. And so,
I think I'd probably echo a lot of what's said. Transparency, I think, being another. And then I think lastly, that balance of recognizing the role you not only play as a leader of the city, but the relationship with city council and the relationship with the community. And having a balanced approach to that, I think, is extremely important. Where the city's not always right, council's not always right, the community's not always right, and you got to figure out how to navigate forward together. So.
I do want to share with you that I have every intention to move here. I'd like to actually move close to City Hall, and so I can be engaged pretty deeply. I'm very excited to move here. My whole family is. I grew up way up in the hills in Amity, and so I miss trees. It's shared with you the stuff. I miss moss even now. So I'm excited.
Okay.
Thank you for allowing me this opportunity.
Sure.
I feel really honored to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time and your interest.
Yes. Oh, thank you.
Right.
Okay. Is that the end?
Yes.
No, leave. Thank you.
Thank you.
I needed my focus.
It's a little chill. Yeah.
Yes. Thanks for coming in.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Nice meeting you.
Nice to meet you too. Don't work too hard, everybody.
Yes.
See you later.
Saturday.
I don't know about you guys, but I don't